Jehovah, I shall not be moved. Anchored in Jehovah, I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the water. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the water. I shall not be moved. Jesus will not fail me. I shall not be moved. Jesus will not fail me. I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the water. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the water. I shall not be moved. Glory, hallelujah, I shall not be moved. Anchored in Jehovah, I shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the water. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. I shall not be moved.
All right. Welcome to the Wakecast. Glad to see each one of you here. And tonight we are in Lesson 7 of Precepts Upon Precept. So tonight we're doing Precepts. And the Lesson 7's title is, this is the Precept series on Covenant. And the title of this lesson is extended to Descendants. And this first section is Day 1.
It's really good too. Therefore, even the first covenant was not inaugurated without blood. Hebrews 9:18. Have you ever wondered why God chose circumcision as a sign of the old covenant? Even some women in our classes have asked, but what did the women do? They couldn't be circumcised. So we studied covenant and read Clay Trumbull's insights. Then we had answers. Let's begin reading Genesis 17, 1 through 27. Now, when you're finished, list everything you learn about circumcision and as it relates to the covenant God made with Abraham. So let's turn to Genesis 17.
And it is in the book, but and I don't know if it'll help you because you marked covenant back there, but on perfect page 13, it is in the book, but it's probably easier just to read it.
Oh, is it in the book?
Okay. It is in the book. If you don't have a Bible or a phone, you can look at page 13 and it is there, but go ahead and read it out of there.
Now when Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Work before me and be blameless. Now I'm reading out of the New American Standard. So it's NASB if you want to go that to your phone. I will make my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly. Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you will be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall you be named Abram, but your name shall be called Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant between me and you, your descendants, and after you throughout their generations, as an everlasting covenant to be God and you, and to your descendants after you. I will give to you and to your descendants after you the land where you live as a stranger, all the land of Canaan as everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said further to Abraham, now as for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of the foreskin, and it shall be the sign of the covenant between me and you. Every male among you who is 8 days old shall be circumcised throughout your generations, including a slave who's born in the house or who is bought with money from a foreigner who is not of your descendants, a slave who is born in your house or who is bought with your money shall certainly be circumcised. So my covenant shall be in your flesh as an everlasting covenant. But as for an uncircumcised male, one who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, he shall be cut off from his people because he has broken my covenant. Then God said to Abraham, as for your wife Sarai, you shall not call her by the name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and indeed I will give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people will come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? And will Sarah, who is 90, give birth to a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael may live before you. But God said, no, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you shall name him Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. As far as Ishmael, I've heard you, behold, I'll bless him and make him fruitful and multiply exceedingly. He shall father 12 princes, and I will make him into a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this season next year. When he finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham, and then Abraham took his son Ishmael and the slaves who were born in his house, and all who were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's household, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin on this very same day, as God had said to him. Now Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. His son Ishmael was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. On this very same day, Abraham was circumcised, as well as his son Ishmael. All the men of his household, those who were born in the house or bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. So now it says, list everything you learned about circumcision as it relates to the covenant that God made with Abraham.
All right. And so, quite a list here is, let's see, in verse 4, the covenant is with thee. It's the first time we mentioned the word covenant. Verse 7, covenant, and so that's why I thought that maybe if you go over, we marked covenant on page 13.
Oh,
it
right.
would help you find all the covenants. But in verse 7, the covenant is between me and thee and thy seed. Then in verse 10, every man child shall be circumcised.
And would you add 8 days?
Then in verse 11, circumcision, a token of the covenant. I guess if you wanted to, but I didn't think that was necessarily part of well, it's part of the covenant, but not pertinent, I guess. What was the question?
Anything that you learned about circumcision that it related to the covenant.
Okay.
Okay.
Verse 13 is the covenant is in your flesh.
Okay.
So verse 18, the covenant is not with Ishmael. Verse 19, the covenant with Isaac, with line. This is with the line that will lead to Christ, as we've been learning as we go through Genesis.
I'm doing my homework with you all, by the way.
Okay, read the next question, please.
Okay, according to Genesis 17, which we just read, with whom was the covenant to be? Or was it just Abraham?
Alrighty, so it's Isaac and his seed, is what I put down. Not saying that my answers are right, and I'm not sure there are right answers to some of these questions. I may be wrong, but I let you know what that I put down.
Sure. Okay. When a covenant was to be made between families, so that the seed or house of the covenanting parties was included in the agreement of the covenant cut was made close to the source of the paternity. Clay Trumbull wrote the following: the blood covenant or friendship shall be consummated by you giving to me your personal blood as a very source of paternity under your girdle, thereby pledging yourself to me, pledging also to me those who shall come after you in the line of the natural descent. When a Jewish child is circumcised, it is commonly said of him that he is caused to enter into a covenant with Abraham, and his godfather or sponsor is called Baal Berith, master of the covenant. As you saw in lesson 4, understanding Genesis 17 and all its implications help understanding Exodus 4:18 through 26. So let's look at the passage again in Exodus, this time in light of the covenant being made between families. Why was Moses in danger? Moses is returning to Egypt to deliver the children of Israel from the bondage of Pharaoh. What happens and why?
Okay, well, is there a verse that we have to read?
Oh, yes, let's read Exodus.
Chapter 4.
Verses 18 through 26.
18 through 26. Okay. By the way, Michael is watching, and he said amen.
Well, hi, Michael. Let's see. Exodus. Sorry about that. There it is. Mine are in alphabetical order for some weird reason. Exodus. I'm sorry, I've lost.
Exodus chapter 4, verse 18 through 26.
4, 18 through 26. I'm almost there, guys. Sorry. Okay. Then Moses departed and returned to his father-in-law Jethro and said to him, please let me go that I may return to my brothers who are in Egypt and see if they are still alive. Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. Now the Lord has said to Moses in Midian, go back to Egypt, for all of the men who were seeking your life are dead. So Moses took his wife and his sons and mounted them on a donkey and returned to the land of Egypt. Now Moses also took the staff of God in his hand. The Lord said to Moses, when you go back to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders which I have put in your power. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, this is what the Lord says. Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I said unto you, let my son go, so that he may serve me. But you have refused to let him go. Behold, I'm going to kill your son, your firstborn. But it came about the overnight encampment on the way that the Lord met Moses and sought to put him to death. So Zipporah took a flint to cut off her son's foreskin and threw it at Moses' feet and said, you are indeed a groom of blood to me. So he left him alone. At that time she said, you are a groom of blood because of the circumcision. Now the Lord said to Aaron, go to meet Moses in the wilderness.
26.
Oh, I thought it was through 27. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope, that's all of it.
Okay. And so in verse 24, the Lord met him and sought to kill him.
Wow.
Yes. In verse 25, we learn that it was his son was not circumcised, was the reason. In other words, Moses was breaking the covenant. So he's going to take his life because it's a blood covenant. His life was required in lieu of the covenant. Michael said, by the way, nice guys.
Oh.
So let's see. I
Okay.
think we have a little bit to read on it.
Do you have a better understanding of circumcision now? Women were included because it was through the seed.
Okay.
Nothing to do with her, just through the seed.
Right. And so that concludes day one, and now we're going to go on to day two. If you're in the class, Debbie has this class on Friday.
Hey, Debbie. Hi, buddy.
Baptist Church at 6:30. If you want to join us, you're welcome to come join us in person as well. But if you're in the class, you may want to hit pause here and mull over day one before you go on to day two. But here is day two.
All right. Have you ever wondered why God asked Abraham to offer up Isaac as a sacrifice? How exciting it is to see its covenant implications. This is what we'll look at today. In Genesis 22, verses 1 through 19, look at these and read them and answer the question that follow. Okay. Genesis 22. Let's turn there if you're studying with us. Genesis 22, 1 through 19. And this is called the offering of Isaac. Now it came about after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, here I am. Then God said, take now your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I will tell you. Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took two of his young men and his son Isaac, and he split wood for the burnt offering and set out and went to the place which God had told him. On the third day, Abraham raised his eyes and saw the place from a distance. Then Abraham said to his young men, you just stay here with the donkey, and I and the boy will go over there, and we will worship and return to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on his son Isaac, and he took in his hand the fire and the knife. So the two of them walked together, and Isaac spoke to his father Abraham and said, my father? And he said, here I am, my son. He said, look at the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham said, God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. So the two of them walked on together. Then they came to the place of which God had told of them, and Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood and bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Abraham reached out with his hand and took his knife to slaughter his son. But an angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. He said, Here I am. And he said, Do not reach out your hand against the boy, and do not do anything to harm him. For now I know that you fear God, since you would have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Then Abraham raised his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, offered it up as a burnt offering in the place of his son. Abraham named that place, The Lord Will Provide. As it said, On this day, on the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you've done this thing and have not withheld your son, your only son. Indeed, I will greatly bless you. I will greatly multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your seed shall possess the gate of their enemies. So the very first question after that reading is, what was Abraham to do to Isaac?
Well, in verse 2 is to take, take now thy son, thine only son, Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. You got that?
I did.
Okay.
B, what was Isaac's relationship to Abraham as far as God's covenant with Abraham? Let's look up some key scriptures that bring us progressively to Isaac's birth. As you read, record how each passage points to a son, then to Isaac. So we got Genesis 12 in verse 2. Let's go to Genesis 12. And I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing.
So it says there, I put down a great nation.
Okay. Okay, let's go Genesis 15 and verse 4. Okay. Then behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, This man will not be your heir, but one who will come from your own body shall be your heir.
No, I just quote what it says. I wrote down, he that comes out of thine own bowels will be heir.
I didn't really say that, but
I know. Mine's in King James and yours is in ASB.
okay.
Yeah.
So the one that will come from your own body shall be your heir. Is that it?
Or loins was in your translation, I think.
Mine says body, but
okay, body.
One will come from your own body. Okay. Or groin, or what was yours? Loins. Okay, Genesis 17.
Bowels.
Bowels. Bowels. Genesis 17, verses 15 through 19. All right. Then God said to Abraham, As far as your wife Sarai, you'll not call her by that name, Sarai, but you'll call her Sarah, shall be her name. I'll bless her, and indeed I will give you a son by her. Then I'll bless her, and she'll be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Will a child be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah, who's 90 years old, give birth to a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. No, let's see. In 19, God said, "No, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you'll name him Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him."
21.
Okay, and then 21 is, "But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at this season next year."
And so, verse 16, we have son, the word son twice. And then in verse 19, we have son and Isaac. And then in verse 21, we have just Isaac.
Son and Isaac. And then just Isaac. Okay, let's turn to Genesis 18, which is the next one over, 10 through 14. Let's go to verse 10. He said, "I'll certainly return to you at this time next year, and behold, your wife Sarah will have a son." Sarah was listening at the tent door, which was behind him. Sarah was eavesdropping. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age. Sarah was past her childbearing years. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I become old, am I to have pleasure, my Lord being old?" But the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, 'Shall I actually give birth to a child when I'm old?' Is anything too difficult for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you. This time next year, Sarah will have a son."
All right, so in verse 10, we see him called son. And in verse 14, again, we have the word son.
Okay, Genesis 21, 1 through 5. Then the Lord took note of Sarah, as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had promised. And so Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time of which God spoken. Abraham named his son, who was born to him, the son whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old. See, I thought that was important. It says it every single time.
Mm-hmm.
As God had commanded him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him.
Okay. So verse 2, we have the word son. Verse 3, Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him Isaac.
Okay.
Okay. For some reason, the word was looked like verse 5 to me in my writing. Okay. Verse 4, the circumcised son is Isaac.
How do you spell circumcision? C-I-R-C-U circum.
M-S-I-Z-E.
Okay. Circumcised son was Isaac.
Circumcised son Isaac.
Yeah.
Verse 5, you have the word son and Isaac.
Okay.
Verse 7, you have the word son. Verse 8, I think is there really any other page now?
Well, it only said 1 through 5 and then verse 12.
Oh, it did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so verse 12, it says Isaac. Okay.
All right.
So skip 7, 8, and 10. Forget about them.
But they all said son in them, didn't they?
No. Son,
okay.
Son, Isaac, son, and Isaac.
Well,
I thought they were relevant.
Okay. If Isaac died, what would happen to God's covenant promise of a seed and eventually a nation? Well, that's easy. Continue on.
Yeah.
He promised his descendants the The covenant of Abraham.
This is a rhetorical question. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-mm. No, I just said, if Isaac dies, then God promised it will go to his descendants.
Well, he's not going to have any descendants if Isaac dies, so God would be breaking the covenant.
Oh, I thought meant later in life if he died, what would happen to his children. So if he never had any children.
If Abraham sacrifices him, then
he wouldn't have any children.
Then what would happen to the covenant? God would be breaking it.
But God would never do that.
Right.
Yeah. So what did you put as your answer?
Broken by God.
It would be broken by God. Like I told you all, I'm doing my homework right now.
Yeah.
All right.
Which helps. That way you guys can do your homework at the same time.
Okay. D. What did God do when Abraham was about to sacrifice Isaac?
Okay. Let's see, verse 11. Abraham.
What did God do? Oh, he said Abraham.
Yeah.
Called out his name.
Yeah, I can't read the next word.
Called his name twice.
Well, lay not thy hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him.
Lay not thy hand on the lad. And what was the second part?
Do anything unto him.
Do not anything to him. What did God say when he stopped Abraham from sacrificing Isaac?
Verse 19, God was able to raise him up from the dead.
But it said, what did God say? What did God say when he stopped Abraham?
That's one we just did. Oh, okay.
No.
I skipped one.
Okay.
D is stopped him. And then when I get what you wrote down for
I was starting to say.
D is E.
Okay, this is E.
Move that to E, and then D is stopped him. I'm sorry, I messed up. I skipped.
That's okay. Stopped him.
I can't follow along with you.
I don't know why. I said D.
I know. Well, okay. I mean, I can't read the questions.
Oh, gotcha.
Or
okay. So I got that, and I put
and
that.
Then we only have 3 questions. So
yep. Number 2. How much did Abraham believe in God's faithfulness to his covenant? Read Hebrews 11:17 through 19. So let's do that together. Hebrews.
And Michael says he likes my shirt.
I like it too. I want one. I want a shirt like yours.
Where'd you got this one?
At the summit.
This is one of the 16 shirts you bought?
Yeah. Exactly. I thought I was selling the shirts. I told him, I said, babe, I've already sold 10 shirts. He said, that's great. I said, 5 of them was to myself. I'm a silly goose. All right. Let's turn Hebrews 11:17 through 19. All right. Here we go. By faith, Abraham, remember that by faith, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And the one who had received the promises was offering up his only son. Now it was he to whom it was said, through Isaac, your descendants shall be named. So that gives you the answer right there. Mm-hmm. 19. He considered that God is able to raise people even from the dead, from which he also received him back as a type. So he was thinking if he did what God wanted him to, God would bring him back to life. Is that how you read that?
Right.
Okay.
He'd raise him from the dead.
Yeah. So, how much did Abraham believe in God's faithfulness to his covenant?
verse 19, God was able to raise up him up even from the dead. So he is how that I see him.
But Abraham believed it so much that he knew that if he killed him, God would bring him back. Is that right?
Right.
All right. Number 3, here's another quote from Trumbull. All over the world, men were in the covenant of blood friendship and were ready, or were supposed to be ready, to give not only their lives for each other, but to give for each other that which was dearer to them than life itself. An Oriental father prizes only a son's life far more than he prizes his own. He recognizes it to be sure as his own disposal, but he would rather surrender any other possession than that. For an Oriental to die without a son is a terrible thought. His life is a failure. His future is blank. But with a son to take his place, in the Oriental, in his sense, is ready to die at any time. When therefore an Oriental has one son, if the choice must be made between cutting short of the father's life or the son, the former would be the lesser surrender. The latter would be the far greater. So in number 4 question, does what Trumbull say fit in with Genesis 22? Was God testing Abraham's commitment to the covenant?
Okay, well, in verse 1, he's tempted. Verse 12, for now I know that thou fearest God, and could be that he feared him not to break the covenant.
That Abraham feared that God would not break the covenant?
No, feared him to not break the covenant.
To not break it, right. Abraham. So he had to have faith that God wouldn't break it.
Yeah, but the fear is what we're talking about here, isn't it?
Right. Well, it says, does what Trumbull said fit in with Genesis 22? Was God testing Abraham's commitment to the covenant?
Right.
Yeah.
So he tempted him in verse 1.
Yeah.
And he's testing the testing or tempting is that he is proving that he's afraid that if he that he's afraid of breaking the covenant.
Yeah.
That he will keep the covenant.
Yeah. All right.
So that concludes day 2. Now we're going to move on to day 3. So if you're in the class, you may want to hit the pause button and wait for another day to push play again until you've mulled over day 2, and then you can go on to day 3. But we're going to go on to day 3 at this time.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, in our study of the custom of the covenant, we begin with illustration of the covenant cut between Jonathan and David. As we saw in 1 Samuel 20, Jonathan and David extended the covenant made in 1 Samuel 18 to their houses or descendants. For the remainder of this week, we want to study the effects of that covenant on the life of Mephibosheth, Jonathan's son. It's an exciting story and will be a neat study for you. Number 1, let's start by reading in detail the events that led up and brought about this covenant. Let's read in 1 Samuel 18 through 20 and record any pertinent information.
Okay, you got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
1 Samuel, let me go back up here. Mine are all wonky. There it is. 18.
They're in alphabetical order.
Mine are, and I hate it, and I don't know how to change it.
Okay.
All right. Jonathan and David. Now, it came about when he had finished speaking to Saul. Jonathan committed himself to David, and Jonathan loved him as himself. And Saul took him that day and did not let him return to his father's house. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as he loved himself. Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David with all of his military gear, including his sword, his bow, and his belt. We just studied that not too long ago. And David went into the battle.
We're reading the same chapters over again.
Yeah. Wherever Saul sent him. Well, anybody that's doing this has already read this. Yes. Anyway, yes. This is for the class. Anybody could go back and say, because he said don't read it. He said, as we saw in 1 Samuel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he didn't say read it. It says.
Oh, he didn't?
No, as we saw in 1 Samuel 20, the covenant made 1 Samuel 18. So it doesn't say to read them all.
Like 4 chapters.
Yeah, I know. It says by reading in detail the events that led up.
Through 20.
1 through 20 and recording pertinent information. We've already read these.
By reading in detail the events that led up to and brought about this
read 1
covenant.
Samuel.
Read 1 Samuel 18 through 20 and
we've really already done that.
Okay, well, it's wanting us to read them again, my dear.
Oh, okay. Well, I just didn't know because.
Are you in chapter 18?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, we'll continue.
All right. Well, see, no, I mean, it doesn't make sense when we've already read them. We could go back and review
read things over and over again.
Okay. Well, it does teach you to remember them.
Yes.
If you do.
We were looking for different things than we were looking for the first time.
Gotcha. Saul put him in charge of the men of war. Thumbs up.
The first time we were looking for a covenant between Joshua and
Jonathan.
This time we're looking at something different.
Okay. And it was pleasing in the sight of all the people and the sight of Saul's servants. And it says to write any pertinent information.
Right. I will do that after you get through reading the chapters.
Gotcha. Now it happened as they were coming when David returned from killing the Philistine, that the women came out of all the cities of Israel singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines, with joy, and with other musical instruments. And the women also sang and played and said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. Right, Rose, Saul's going to be jealous. Then Saul became very angry, for this lyric displeased him. Saul was jealous. And he said, they have given David credit for 10,000s, but to me they've given credit for only thousands. Come on, Saul, grow up. Now what more can he add him for the kingdom? Saul eyed David with suspicion. From that day on, I'm watching you. I'm watching you. And starting with verse 10, Saul turns.
We don't need you backing up.
Now, it makes it more interesting. Now it came about on the next day that an evil spirit from God rushed upon Saul. That is a little.
That's an interesting.
It's an interesting verse. I'm like,
So when I get an evil spirit, it's from God.
I will rebuke it anyway. And he raved in the midst of the house while David was playing the harp with his hand as usual, and a spear was in Saul's hand. Saul hurled the spear, for he thought, I'll pin David to the wall. But David escaped from his presence twice. Now Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him, but had left Saul. Saul removed him from his presence and appointed him as a commander of 1,000. He went out and came in before the people, and David was successful in all of his ways, for the Lord was with him. When Saul saw that he was very successful, he was afraid of him. But all of Israel and Judah loved David, for he would go out to battle and return before them. Then Saul said to David, here is my older daughter, Merab. I will give her to you as a wife. Only be a valiant man for me and fight the Lord's battles. And Saul thought, my hand shall not be against him, but let the hand of the Philistines. He was hoping they'd kill him, wasn't he?
Yes.
But David said to Saul, "Who am I, and who is my family, or my father's family in Israel, that I should be the king's son-in-law?" So it came about at the time that Merab, Saul's daughter, was to be given to David, that she was given instead to Adriel the Maholathite as a wife. Now Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David. When they informed Saul, the thing was pleasing for him. For Saul thought, "I will give her to him so that she may become a trap for him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him." So Saul said to David for the second time, "You may become my son-in-law today." Then Saul commanded his servants, "Speak to David in a secret, saying, 'Behold, the king's delights, and all his servants love you, and now and then become the king's son-in-law.'" So Saul's servants spoke these words to David, and David said, "If it is trivial in your sight to become the king's son-in-law, since I'm only a poor man and insignificant." Then Saul's servant reported to him, saying, "These are the words David spoke." Saul then said, "This is what you shall say to David. The king does not desire any dowry except for 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to take vengeance on the king's enemies." But Saul plotted to have David fall by the hand of the Philistines. When his servants told David these words, it pleased him, because he was going to become the king's son-in-law. So before the time had expired, David set out and went, and he and his men fatally struck 200 men among the Philistines. David brought their foreskins and presented them 200 to the king, so he might become the king's son-in-law. Saul gave
him twice as many as he required.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saul gave him his daughter Michal as a wife. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him, Saul was even more afraid of David. So Saul was David's enemy continually. Then the commanders of the Philistines went to battle, and as it happened as often as they went out, that David was more successful than all the servants of Saul. So his name was held in high esteem. Okay, 19. David protected from Saul. Now Saul told his son Jonathan and all of his servants to put David to death. But Jonathan, Saul's son, greatly delighted in David. And Jonathan informed David, saying, "My father Saul is seeking to put you to death. Now then, please be on your guard in the morning and stay in a hiding place. Hide yourself. And as for me, I'll go out and stand beside my father in the field where you're hiding, and I'll speak with my father about you. Whatever I find out, I will tell you." Jonathan spoke well of David to his father Saul and said to him, "May the king not sin against his servant David. He has not sinned against you, since his deeds have been very beneficial to you. For he took his life in his hand and struck the Philistine, and the Lord brought about a great victory for all of Israel. And you saw it, and you rejoiced. So why would you sin against innocent blood with putting David to death? For no reason." Saul listened to the voice of Jonathan, and he vowed, "As the Lord lives, David shall not be put to death." Then Jonathan called David, and Jonathan told him all these words. And Jonathan brought David to Saul and was in his presence as before. When there was war again, David went out and fought the Philistines and defeated them with a great slaughter, so that they fled from him. Now there was an evil spirit from the Lord on Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand, and David was playing the harp with his hand. And Saul tried to pin David to the wall with a spear, but he escaped from Saul's presence so that he stuck the spear into the wall. David fled and escaped that night. Saul sent messengers to David's house to watch him in order to put him to death. In the morning, Saul said he wasn't going to kill him.
I know, but
Changed his mind.
It's like with Pharaoh. God hardened his heart, and then he called Moses back in and said, "No, you can't go."
Right.
After he told him, "Get out of here, take your people and go."
Go.
I'm sick of looking at your face.
Yeah.
And then the next day he called him and said, "You're not going anywhere."
Well, now it's David's wife.
Moses would have to do another miracle, and then. Anyway.
But Michal, David's wife, informed him, saying, if you do not save your life tonight, tomorrow you'll be put to death." So Michal let David down through a window, and he went and fled and escaped. And Michal took the household idol, laid it on the bed, and put a quilt of goat's hair at its head and covered it with clothing.
Well, in the King James, it says an image. It doesn't say an idol. Okay.
Yeah. When Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, "He's sick."
So what I was picturing whenever I read it was that it was a painting of David. And so she took a painting of David off the wall and
laid it in the bed and put hair on it.
And laid it in the bed and then made it out of body or that's
like
what
pillows.
That's what I was imagining. Okay?
Says an idol.
Instead of probably a bust.
Yeah, exactly. Then Saul sent messengers to see David, saying, "Bring him up to me on his bed, so I may put him to death." When the messengers entered, behold, the household idol was on the bed with the quilt of goat's hair as its head. Saul said to Michal, "Why have you betrayed me like this? Let my enemy go so that he has escaped." Michal said to Saul, "He said to me, 'Let me go. Why should I put you to death?'" So David fled and escaped and came to Samuel at Ramah. And he informed him of everything that Saul had done to him. And he went to Samuel, went and stayed in Naioth. But it was reported to Saul, "Behold, David is at Naioth and Ramah." Then Saul sent messengers to take David. But when they saw the company of prophets prophesying with Samuel, standing and presiding over them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. When Saul was informed of this, he sent other messengers, but they also prophesied. Saul sent messengers out again a third time, and they prophesied. Then he went to Ramah himself and came as far as the large well that is in Siku. And he asked, "Where are Samuel and David?" Someone said, "Behold, they are at Naioth in Ramah." So he proceeded there to Naioth in Ramah, but the Spirit of God came upon him also, that he went along prophesying continually until he came to Naioth in Ramah, and he also stripped off his clothes, and he too prophesied before Samuel, and lay down naked all that day and all that night. Therefore, they say, "Is Saul also among the prophets?" 20.
Okay. And a note about those idols, that's the same as the ones that Rachel had, but that she stole
under the camel.
From Laban.
Yeah.
Under the camel's furniture. Yep.
Yep.
Apparently, it's the same words used in both places.
Then David fled from Naioth and Ramah and he came and said, "Jonathan, what have I done? What's my guilt? What is my sin before your father that he's seeking my life?" He said, "Far from it, you shall not die. Hell, my father does nothing, either great or small, without informing me. So why would my father hide this thing from me? It is not so." Yet David vowed again, saying, "Your father is well aware that I have found favor in your sight." And he said, "Jonathan is not to know this, otherwise he will be worried. But indeed, as the Lord lives, as your soul lives, there's just a step between me and death." Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you say, I'll do for you." So David said to Jonathan, "Behold, tomorrow's a new moon, and I'm obligated to sit down to eat with the king. But let me go so that I may have myself in the field until the third evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, David earnestly requested leave of me to run to Bethlehem, his city. It's the yearly sacrifice there for the whole family. If he said, that's good, your servant will be saved. But if he's angry, be aware that he has decided on evil. So deal with your servant. So deal kindly with your servant. If you have brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you, if I'm guilty of wrongdoing, kill me yourself. For why then should you bring me to your father? Jonathan said, far be it from you. For if I in fact learn that my father has decided to inflict harm on you, would I not inform you? David said to Jonathan, who will inform me if your father answers you harshly? Jonathan said to David, come, let's go out in the field. So both of them went out in the field. Then Jonathan said to David, the Lord, the God of Israel, is my witness. When I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow, the third day, if he has a good feeling towards you, shall I not then send word to you and inform you? And if it pleases my father to do you harm, may the Lord do so to me, and I more so, if I fail to inform you and send you away, so that you may go in safety, and may the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. If I'm still alive, will you not show me the faithfulness of the Lord so that I do not die? You'll never cut off your loyalty to my house, not even when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord demand it from the hands of David's enemies. And Jonathan made David a vow because of his love for him, because he loved him as he loved his own self. Then Jonathan said to him, tomorrow is a new moon. You'll be missed since your seat will be empty. When you have stayed for 3 days, you shall go down quickly and come to the place where you hid yourself on that eventful day. You shall remain beside the stone easel, and I will shoot 3 arrows to the side as though I shot at a target. Then behold, I'll send the boy, telling him, go find those arrows. If I specifically say to the boy, behold, the arrows are on the side of you, get them. Then come, because it's safe for you, and there's nothing to harm you, as the Lord lives. But if I say to the youth, behold, the arrows are beyond you, go, because the Lord has sent you away. As far as the agreement of which you and I have spoken, behold, the Lord is between you and me forever. So David hid himself in the field, and the new moon came. The king sat down to eat food, and now the king sat on his seat as usual, and Jonathan stood up, and Abner sat down by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul did not say anything that day, because he thought, must have been an accident. He's not clean. Undoubtedly, is not clean. But it came about the next day, the second day of the new moon, David's place was empty again, and Saul said to his son Jonathan, why has the son of Jesse not come to the meal, either yesterday or today? And Jonathan answered Saul and said, David earnestly requested leave of me to go to Bethlehem. He said, let me go because our family has to make a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has ordered me to attend. So if I found favor in your sight, please let me slip away, that I may see my brothers. For this reason, he has not come to the king's table. Saul is angry with Jonathan. Saul's anger burned against Jonathan. He said, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman. Do Do I not know that you are choosing the son of Jesse to your own shame, and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now then, send men and bring him to me, for he is doomed to die. But Jonathan replied Saul to his father Saul and said to him, Why must he be put to death? What's he done? Then Saul hurled his spear at him to strike him and kill him. So Jonathan knew his father had decided to put David to death. Then Jonathan got up from the table in the heat of anger, did not eat food on the second day of the new moon. He was worried about David since his father had insulted him. Now it came about in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time agreed upon with David, and a little boy was with him. And he said to this boy, Run, find now the arrows which I am about to shoot. The boy ran and he shot the arrow post. He shot an arrow past him. When the boy reached the location of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, he called after the boy and said, Is the arrow not beyond you? Then Jonathan called after the boy, Hurry, be quick, do not stay. And Jonathan's boy picked up the arrow and came to his master. But the boy was not aware of anything, only Jonathan and David knew what the matter was. Jonathan gave his weapons to his boy and said to him, Go bring them to the city. When the boy was gone, David got up from the south side, fell on his face to the ground, bowed 3 times, and they kissed each other and wept together until David wept immeasurably. Jonathan said to David, Go in safety, since we have sworn to each other in the name of the Lord, saying, The Lord will be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever. So David set out and went on his way while Jonathan went into the city.
All right, so I want to point out, because I didn't realize it until after I'd done it, that's the way these things go, is that there's room on the next page also to write more than there is just here on this page. So the first thing was in chapter 18 and verse 3, we see a covenant made. Verse 25, Saul wants 100 foreskins of the Philistines for dowry.
Saul,
the strangers in the land, okay?
wants 100 foreskins. Okay.
Chapter 19, verse 2, Jonathan told David, Saul seeketh to kill thee. And I was thinking, I didn't do it, but you could probably look back and see what your answers were in the prior lessons on these as well, in these chapters. Verse 4, Jonathan spake good of David unto son.
Unto who?
Saul.
Okay. Jonathan spoke.
I didn't see the L. It looked like son.
Spoke favor to Saul.
Verse 11, Michal, David's wife, told him to morrow shalt be slain. I put that down because he has a covenant with his wife and she's aligning with him too. Verse 18, Samuel takes David to Ramah.
Takes.
And so I thought I wrote that down because Samuel is sort of he's acting as a friend of his, and that's part that in a way as we've learned is the covenant. He's sort of in covenant with Samuel. Verse 21, Saul messenger prophesied.
Okay.
Verse 24, Saul lay down naked all that day and night, prophesied.
Why do you have to be naked?
Well, it's with your tunic on, like I explained to you last
So
time.
it wasn't naked.
When was that?
Well, even today it was spoke about.
I know, but in a prior waycast, I explained to you that it's just their tunic. They're running around like Gandhi is in the movie Gandhi.
Gotcha.
And yes, and so they're not totally naked, but they're in their tunic.
So they call it naked.
Right. They don't have on their. Well, they have. No, it's not their tunic. Well, they don't have on their coat. And so, but anyway.
They've got the little groin covered and all that.
Yeah. Loin. Their loincloth. Yeah.
Loincloth.
It's not a tunic. They're having their loins girded.
Right.
About, okay. 20 and verse 4 is Jonathan unto David, whatsoever thy soul desirous, I will give it thee. Now, the reason I said the things about Saul and Saul's messengers, because we were to record things that were interesting, right? Or
right.
that we perceived
pertinent.
Pertinent. So I thought that was interesting. Verse 17, Jonathan loved David as he loved his own soul.
Jonathan loved David.
Now, you can write on the back, by the way.
Okay.
There's room on the next page. Verse 23, the Lord between thee and me forever.
Between thee and me forever.
Verse 30, Saul calls Jonathan mother. Saul calls Jonathan's mother the perverse, rebellious woman.
Oh.
I thought that was interesting. Obviously, Saul and Jonathan's mother were no longer getting along.
Sounds like it. Perverse, rebellious woman?
Yeah. Maybe she left him for another man.
May have.
Let's see here. Chosen son of Jesse, to the confusion of thy mother's nakedness.
What verse is that? You never said.
Verse 30. It's continuation of verse 30.
Okay.
You've chosen the son of Jesse to the confusion of thy mother's nakedness.
Okay.
Okay. Verse 42. And the Lord be between my seed and thy seed.
The Lord be between?
Yes.
Okay. The Lord be between my seed and thy seed.
All right.
Okay. Next. Oh, this is day 3. Okay. Number 2. Remember, David had already been anointed by Samuel the prophet as a successor to the throne of Israel. David was God's replacement for Saul. Who was Jonathan's father?
Jonathan's father.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see it. Is there actually a question there?
Who was Jonathan's father?
Read 1 Samuel chapter 16.
Okay. I thought I already did. Yes.
Oh,
Who was Samuel's father? Now the Lord said,
Jonathan's father.
oh yeah, I'm sorry. Who was Jonathan's father? Now the Lord said to Samuel, how long are you going to mourn for Saul, since I've rejected him from being king of Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I'll send you to Jesse, the Bethlehemite, because I have chosen a king for myself among his sons. So it was Jesse.
Who's Jesse's father?
Nope. Who was Jonathan's father?
Nobody.
Yeah. How can I go? When Saul hears about it, he'll kill me. The Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I've come to sacrifice to the Lord. And you'll invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I'll let you know what you shall do. And you shall anoint for me the one whom I designate to you. So Samuel did what the Lord had told him, and he came to Bethlehem. And then the elders of the city came trembling to meet him. Do you come in peace? And he said, in peace I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourself and come with me to the sacrifice. He also consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they entered, he looked at Eliab and thought, surely the Lord's anointing is standing before him. The Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For God does not see as a man sees, since man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Then Jesse called Abinadab and had him pass before Samuel. The Lord has not chosen this one either. Next, Jesse had Shammah pass, and the Lord has not chosen this one either. He had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord hath not chosen these. Then Samuel said to Jesse, are these all your boys? The youngest is still left, but behold, he's tending the sheep. Samuel said to Jesse, send word and bring him, for we'll not take our place at the table till he comes. So he sent the word and brought him in, and he was reddish with beautiful eyes and a handsome appearance. And the Lord said, arise and anoint him, for this is he. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward. Samuel sent out and went to Ramah. Now the Spirit of the Lord left Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord terrified him. There it is again. Saul's servants said to him, behold, now an evil spirit from God is terrifying you. May our Lord now command your servants who are before you. Have them search for a man who's a skillful musician on a harp, and shall come whenever the evil spirit from God is upon you. And he shall play the harp with his hand, and you'll become well. Saul said to his servant, now select for me a man who can play well and bring him to me. Then one of the young men responded, behold, I've seen the son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite, who is a skillful musician, a valiant, mighty man, a warrior, skillful in speech, and a handsome man. And the Lord is with him. And Saul sent a messenger to Jesse, saying, send me your son David, who's with flock. Jesse took a donkey and loaded with bread and a jug of wine, and he took a young goat and sent them to Saul by his son David. Then David came to Saul and attended him, and Saul greatly loved him, and he became his armor bearer. So Saul sent a word to Jesse, saying, let David now be my attendant, for he's found favor in my sight. So it came about, whenever the evil spirit from God came to Saul, David would take a harp and play it with his hand, and Saul would feel relief and become well, and the evil spirit would leave him.
So the evil spirit was of fear, basically. All right.
But the question is, who was Jonathan's father?
No, read the whole thing. It says Saul, who was Jonathan's father. It's a statement, not a question.
Oh, I see that. David was God's replacement for Saul, who was Jonathan's father.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. Now, Michael says, this study reminds me of how important it really is to have a family and keep them close to Christ and the sacrifices that are necessary so we can have eternal life.
Amen to that, Michael.
And so let's continue on to the next question.
All right. Now,
there isn't a question there.
No. No question.
And one, the task for that question was to read that chapter.
Gotcha. All right.
Yes.
All right. In Jonathan's word to David in 1 Samuel 20, do you see any indication of the fact that Jonathan senses David's rise to power over Saul? And by the way, loving kindness is said to be a covenant expression. Explain your answer.
Okay. So my answer is yes. Let's see. Oh, are we supposed to read a bunch of chapters again?
No, we already read Samuel 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I have to admit, this is a very difficult question.
Well, it says, do you see any indications in the fact that Jonathan does sense David's rise to power over Saul?
Yes.
I would say yes.
In verse 13, it says, "May the Lord be with you as with my father."
Okay, let me put that.
Oh, you like that, huh?
Yeah, I did. The Lord be with you. Because right there would show he was putting him up with his father. Be with you as he is with my father. Okay.
Okay.
Hold on.
Oh, you're not done.
What was a long answer?
Okay.
Okay.
The next one's longer.
Okay.
Verse 14 and 15, loving kindness from the Hebrew word hased denotes covenant, loyalty. Jonathan is asking, once king, David spare his descendants.
Yeah. So he wants David to spare his descendants.
Yes.
Okay.
Verse 17, Jonathan sees God's hand in David's destiny. And that concludes day 3. And now we're going to go on to day 4. And so if you're in the class, you may want to hit the pause button
and take a drink of water.
And then take a drink of water and come back tomorrow after you've slept over it, and meditated on it, and ruminated, let it marinate in your mind.
Marinate.
And then come back afresh. Let day 3 marinate in your mind so you'd be fresh for day 4. And maybe have some insights from day 3 that you didn't see before. So day 4.
Okay, I'm getting there.
Oh, you have got to read them a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is the 4 chapters. Another 4 chapters.
Well, it's actually 3, babe.
Well, 3 and 4 verses.
And only 4 verses. Yeah. Priest killed at Nob is the name of this, and I'm reading in the
Priest killed at Nob.
The priests are killed at Nob is my explanation of.
Are you in 1 Samuel?
1 Samuel 22.
Okay.
Yeah. So David departed from there and escaped the cave of Adullam with his brothers and all of his father's household. Heard about it. They went down there to him. Everyone was in distress, and everyone who was in debt and everyone who was discontented gathered to him, and he became captain over them. Now there were about 400 men with him, and David went from there to Mizpah of Moab, and he said to the king of Moab, "Please, is it Moab or Moab? Either one,
Moab,
probably.
It's fine.
Okay. Please let my father and my mother come and stay with you until I just know what God will do for me." Then he left them with the king of Moab, and They stayed with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. God said, but God the prophet said to David, do not stay in the stronghold. Leave and go into the land of Judah. So David left and went to the forest of Hereth. And then Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had been discovered. Now Saul was in Gibeah, sitting under a tamarisk tree on the height with his spear in his hand, and all of his servants were standing in front of him. Well, Saul always had a spear in his hand, sounded like.
I guess instead of a sword fighter, he's a spear fighter.
He was a spear fighter. No sword for Saul. Saul said to his servants who were standing in front of him, hear now, you Benjamites. Will the son of Jesse really give all you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of 1,000, commanders of hundreds? For all of you have conspired against me, so there is no one who informs me when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse. And there's none of you who even cares about me or informs me that my son stirred up my servants against me to lie in ambush, as it is this day.
What verse was covenant there?
Hold on.
That my son has made a covenant with the son of Jesse.
8, verse 8. 22, verse 8.
That's a later question. That,
okay.
I couldn't find. Okay.
Then Doeg the Edomite, who was standing in front of the servants of Saul, responded and said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent a messenger to summon Ahimelech, and the priest and the son of Ahitub, and all of his father's household, and the priests who were in Nob. I feel like something's crawling on me. I'm sorry, and I was scratched and lost my place. Yep, sorry, there it is. Then the king sent a messenger to summon Ahimelech, the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all of his father's household, and the priests who were there in Nob, and all of them came to the king. Saul said, now listen, son of Ahitub. And he replied, here am I, my lord. And Saul said, why have you, the son of Jesse, conspired against me, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of God for him, so that he would rise up against me by lying in ambush, as it is in this day? The Ahimelech answered the king and said, and who among all your servants is faithful as David, the king's own son-in-law, who's commander over your bodyguard and is honored in your house? Did I just begin to inquire of God for him today? Far be it from me. Don't let the king impute anything against his servant or anything against any of the household of my father, because your servant knows nothing at all of this whole affair. But the king said, you shall certainly die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's household. And the king said to the guards who were attending, turn around and put the priest of the Lord to death, because their hand also is with David, because they knew that he was fleeing and did not inform me. But the servants of the king were unwilling to reach out with their hands and attack the priest of the Lord. Then the king said to Doeg, you turn around and attack the priest. And Doeg the Edomite turned around and attacked the priest, and he killed on that day 85 men who wore the linen ephod. He also struck Nob, the city of the priest, with the edge of the sword, both men, women, and children, and infants. He also struck oxen and donkeys and sheep with the edge of the sword. But one son of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled to David. Abiathar informed David that Saul had killed the priest of the Lord. David said to Abiathar, I knew on that day when Doeg Edomite was there, he would certainly tell Saul, I myself have turned against every person in your father's household. Stay with me and don't be afraid, even though he who is seeking my life is seeking yours, for you are safe with me. Okay. Okay, and 24. David spares Saul's life. Now, when Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, it was reported to him, behold, David's in the wilderness of Engedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all of Israel and went to search for David and his men in front of the rocks of the mountain of goats. And he came to the sheepfolds on the way, and there was a cave. Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the inner recesses of the cave, and David's men said, Behold, this is the day of which the Lord said to you, Behold, I'm about to hand your enemy over to you, and you shall do to him as it seems good to you. So David got up and cut off the edge of Saul's robe secretly. But it came about afterwards that David's conscience bothered him because he had cut off the edge of Saul's robe. So he said to his men, Far be it from me, because of the Lord. I would do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to reach out with my hand against him, since he is the Lord's anointed. David rebuked his men with these words and did not allow them to rise up against Saul. Saul got up and left the cave and went on his way. Now afterward, however, David got up and went out of the cave and called after Saul, saying, My Lord and King. Saul looked around behind him, and David bowed with his face to the ground, prostrated himself. David said to Saul, Why do you listen to the words of men who say, Behold, David's seeking to harm you? This is the day your eyes have seen that the Lord has handed you over to me today in the cave. Someone said to kill you, but I spared you, and I will not reach out with my hand against my Lord, because he is the Lord's anointed. So my father, look at the edge of your robe in my hand. For by the fact I cut off the edge of your robe, I did not kill you. Know and understand that there is no evil or rebellion in my hands. I've not sinned against you, though you're lying in wait for my life to take it. So may the Lord judge between you and me. May the Lord take vengeance on you for me, but my hand shall not be against you. And as the proverb of the ancient says, out of the wicked comes wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel gone out? Who are you pursuing? A dead dog, a single flea? May the Lord therefore be judge and decide between you and me. And may he see and plead my case and save me from your hand. When David had finished speaking these words, Saul said, Is this your voice, my son David? Then Saul raised his voice and wept. And he said to David, You are more righteous than I, for you have dealt well with me, while I have dealt maliciously with you. You've declared today that you've done good to me, and that the Lord handed me over to you, yet you did not kill me. Though if a man finds his enemy, will he let him go away unharmed? May the Lord therefore reward you with a good in return for what you've done to me this day. Now behold, I know that you certainly will be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand. So now, swear to me by the Lord that you will not cut off my descendants after me, and that you will not eliminate my name from my father's household. David swore an oath to Saul. Saul went to his home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. Okay. So in 1 Samuel chapter 26, David again spares Saul. I'm going to have to give me a drink, guys. Sorry. Then the Ziphites came to Saul in Gibeah, saying, "Is David not keeping himself hidden on the hill of Hakilah, which is opposite of Jessamon?" Saul set out, went down to the wilderness of Ziph, taking with him 3,000 chosen men of Israel to search for David in the wilderness of Ziph. Saul, not Paul, camped on the hill, which is opposite of Jessamon, beside the road, and David was staying in the wilderness. Now, when he saw that Saul had come after him in the wilderness, David sent out spies. He learned that Saul was definitely coming. Saul gives David this big spiel of all this, and then here we go again,
Right.
David then sent out and came to the place where Saul had camped, and David saw the place where Saul lay. Abner, the son of Ner, the commander of his army. Saul was lying in the circle of the camp, and the people were camped around him. Then David said to Ahimelech, the Hittite, and the Abishai, that the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, saying, "Who will go down with me to Saul in the camp?" And Abishai said, "I will go down with you." So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping inside the circle of the camp with his spear stuck in the ground. There he is with his spear again at his head. Abner and the people were lying around him. Then Abishai said to David, "Today God has handed you your enemy. Now then, please let me pin him with his own spear to the ground with just one thrust. I'll not do it to him a second time." David said to Abishai, "Don't kill him, for who can reach out with his hand against the Lord's anointed and remain innocent?" David also said, "As the Lord lives, the Lord certainly will strike him, or his day will come that he dies, and he will go down in battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I would reach out with my hand against the Lord's anointed. But now please take a spear at his head and a jug of water, and let's go." So David took the spear and the jug of water that were at Saul's head, and they left, and no one saw or knew about it, nor did anyone awaken, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen on them. Then David crossed over to the other side and stood at the top of the mountain at a distance with a large area between them, and David called to the people and to Abner, the son of Ner, saying, "Will you not answer, Abner?" Abner replied, "Who are you? And who calls to the king?" So David said to Abner, "Are you not a man? And who is like you in Israel? Why then have you not guarded your lord, the king? For one of the people came to kill the king, your lord. This is the thing that you've done is not good. As the Lord lives, all of you undoubtedly must die, because you did not guard your lord, the Lord's anointed. Now, see where the king's spear is and the jug of water that was at his head." Then Saul recognized David's voice and said, "Is this your voice, my son David?" I'm like, "Bleh. Is this your voice, my son David?" After trying to kill David again, and David said, "It's my voice, my lord and my king." He also said, "Why then is my lord pursuing his servant? For what have I done? What's my evil? What evil is in my hand? Now then, please let my lord the king listen to the words of his servant. If the Lord has incited you against me, may he accept an offering. But if it's his people, cursed are they before the Lord, because they have driven me out today, so that I would have no share in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, 'Go serve another's gods.' Now then, do not let my blood fall to the ground, far from the presence of the Lord, for the king of Israel has come out to search for a single flea, just as one hunts a partridge in the mountains. Then Saul said, I've sinned. Return my son David, for I will not harm you again, since my life was precious in your sight. This day, behold, I have played the fool and have made a very great mistake. David replied, behold, the spear of the king. Now have one of the young men come over and take it, and the Lord will repay each man for his righteousness and his faithfulness. For the Lord handed you over to me, but I refused to reach out with my hand against the Lord's anointed. Therefore, behold, just as your life was highly valued in my sight this day, so may my life be highly valued in the sight of the Lord, and may he rescue me from all distress. Then Saul said to David, blessed are you, my son David. You will both accomplish much and assuredly prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. Now we've got 27, verses 1 through 4. Then David said to himself, now I'll perish one day by the hand of Saul. There's nothing better for me than to safely escape into the land of the Philistines. Then Saul would despair of searching for me any more in all the territory of Israel, and I will escape from his hand. So David set out and went over, he and 600 men who were with him, to Achish, the son of Moch, king of Gath. And David lived with Achish in Gath, and he and his men, each with his own household. David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam and Jezreelitis, and Abigail the Carmelitess, noble's widow. Now it was reported to Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he no longer searched for him.
Okay. You say 2 wives? There's like 3 or 4 there.
Well, he said David with his 2 wives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitis, that's 1, Abigail the Carmelitess, noble's widow, that's 2.
What happened to Michael? Anyway.
I don't know. It never mentions Michael. Maybe she's passed away.
All right.
So, Saul's reference to the covenant between Jonathan and David is number 1.
Okay, and so I missed this. I messed this up or missed it until you read it, and so we have it in 1 Samuel chapter 22 and verse 8 is a covenant with the son of Jesse.
Son of Jesse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Originally, I had put down that it was not directly. I have to write this down spiritually in 1 Samuel chapter 24 and verse 17. It's he says, Saul says, David's more righteous than I, and then 1 Samuel chapter 24 and verse 20. I know that you will surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel will be established in your hand. And then we also have in 1 Samuel chapter 20 verses 30 and 31 that Saul's suspicious of all, and then I can't read the word I wrote after that. Dance. It looks like dance, but I don't know. But he's of all everybody around him, he's become very paranoid from the spirit of fear. It's from the Lord, apparently.
The evil spirit.
The evil spirit.
I'm sure not. I'm a little bit wondering about that.
Yeah.
Evil spirit from God. That's what it says.
Mm-hmm. Well, I told you, God made Pharaoh's heart harden. So
He did.
Wouldn't let the people go.
Yeah. Okay. David's refusal to kill Saul but he had the opportunity.
In 1 Samuel 24, you see the cave of En Gedi, and more specifically, verse 4 and verse 6. He says there, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, and the Lord and anointed to stretch out my hand against him, seeing he is the Lord's anointed. We also see in verse 11, 12, 21, and 22, and then in 2 Samuel 26, Saul sleeps in the camp. And then you have there verses 8, 9, and 18. There's not really enough room there for me to write much, but
right.
Anyway. They should have done like the next question on a separate.
I know it just says on a separate sheet of paper. Okay, that's all of 4.
No, you got to write. What is the next question?
Oh, number 3?
Yes.
Oh, I thought that's what it said on a separate sheet of paper.
No, I said they should have on this question.
Oh, yeah.
Said write your answer on a separate sheet of paper.
Anything that pertains to your understanding of the covenant, plus anything else you want to remember.
Okay, so I'll read and you put in there whatever you want. Day 4, number 3. Someone who breaks a covenant is not loyal or can not be a good leader. David learned, though, covenant to respect the ordained anointing of Saul. More than friends, mutual oath before God. In 1 Samuel chapter 23 and verse 17, Jonathan acknowledges David as God's chosen, willingly steps aside from the throne. I wonder if Jonathan knows he would die for David to take the throne, and is willing. And so then I put, he is willing.
He is willing.
He is willing, because he said, whatever your soul desires, I will do. David protects Mephibosheth in 2 Samuel chapter 9, fulfilling the covenant. Saul sees loyalty only in terms of political threat. The mercy for Saul in 1 Samuel chapter 24 and 26, in Gedi chapter 24 verses 3 through 4, and then in Zeph chapters 26 7 through 12. In chapter 24 verses 6 and 9, and then in chapter 26 and verse 9, the Lord forbid I should do this thing to the Lord's anointed. Even when human authority is misused, as you see today, is sacred because it is ordained by God. Then in chapter 24 and verse 20, David trusts God to fulfill his promise. Verse 12, David appeals to God as judge. Verse 11, and then chapter 26 and verse 16, the power and rest. Let's see. Rest something. God's heart. Anyway, it's up to God.
It's all up to God.
You know, the power and the rest of them. In 1 Samuel chapter 22, Saul, the moral and spiritual collapse, convinced all around him are conspiring against him. And so that fills up my page.
It's a lot. I didn't write it down because it was too much. I thought I would do that when I could just look at your notes.
Probably.
Okay.
We're not done here. Now we've moved from day 4 to day 5.
Oh, I know. I thought we were done for day 4.
Oh yeah, we are.
Okay.
And so you may, if you're in the class, you may want to hit the pause button and let it marinate overnight in the refrigerator of your brain, and pull it out tomorrow. Look at it, and then look it over, and then hit play and start day 5. But we're going to continue on to day 5.
Yep. Okay. Day 5. Okay. Today's an exciting day. This is when it all comes together. Even though Saul sought David's life, when given the opportunity, David refused to kill Saul. So let's read 1 Samuel. Let's just read of all Samuel. How's that? No. 1 Samuel chapter 31. And then 2 Samuel 1. So, Saul and his sons are killed in battle. Now the Philistines were fighting against Israel. And the men of Israel had fled from the Philistines, but fell fatally wounded at Mount Gilboa. Philistines also overtook Saul and his sons, and the Philistines killed Jonathan, Abinadab, Malchishua, the son of Saul. The battle went heavily against Saul. The archers found him, and he was gravely wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword and pierce me through with it. Otherwise, these uncircumcised Philistines will come and pierce me."
What's he wanting to pierce him through with? It doesn't say that.
Yeah. Draw your sword.
Okay.
And pierce me through.
Okay.
With it. Or the Philistines would, the uncircumcised Philistines. And they would abuse me. But his armor bearer was unwilling to do so because he was very fearful. So Saul took his sword and fell on it. When his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he also fell on his sword and died with him. So Saul died with his 3 sons and his armor bearer. It didn't say who his armor bearer was. Didn't get a name.
No.
And all of his men on that day together. Now when the people of Israel who were there on the other side of the valley with those who were beyond the Jordan saw that the men of Israel had fled and that Saul his sons and all of his sons were dead, they abandoned the city and fled. Then the Philistines came and settled in them, and it came about on that next day when the Philistines came to strip those killed, they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. They cut off his head, stripped off his weapons, and sent them throughout the land of the Philistines to bring the good news to the house of their idols and the people. They put his weapons in the temple of Ashtaroth, and they nailed his body to the wall of Bethshan. Now when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men got up and walked all night. And they took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan, and they came to Jabesh and burned them there. They took their bones and buried them under a tamarisk tree in Jabesh and fasted for 7 days. That was 1 Samuel 31. Now let's do 2 Samuel 1.
The next chapter.
Yeah. David learns of Saul's death. Now it came about after the death of Saul, when David had returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, that David stayed 2 days in Ziklag. And on the third day, behold, a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dust in his head. And it happened that he came to David. He fell to the ground and prostrated himself. David said to him, "From where do you come?" And he said, "I have escaped from the camp of Israel." David said, "How did things go? Please tell me." And he said, "The people have fled from the battle, and many of the people also have fallen, and they are dead. Saul and his son Jonathan are also dead." Then David said to the young man who told him, "How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead?" The young man who told him said, "By chance, I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, and behold, Saul was leaning on his spear, and behold, the chariots and the horsemen had overtaken him. When he looked behind himself, he saw me and called to me. I said, 'Here I am.' And he said, 'Who are you?' And I answered him, 'I am an Amalekite.' And he said to me, 'Please stand next to me and finish me off, for the agony has seized me because my life still lingers in me.' So I stood next to him and finished him off, because I knew that he could not live after he had fallen. I took the crown which was on his head and the band which was on his arm, and I brought them here to my Lord." Then David took hold of his clothes and tore them. So also did all the men who were with him, and they mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and Jonathan, and for the people of the Lord in the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. Then David said to the young man who informed him, "Where are you from?" And he answered, "I'm the son of a stranger, an Amalekite." And David said to him, "How is it that you were not afraid to reach out with your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" David called one of the young men and said, "Come forward and put him to death." He struck him and he died. David said to him, "Your blood is on your head, because your own mouth has testified against you, saying, 'I finished off the Lord's anointed.'" Then David sang a song of mourning over Saul and his son Jonathan, and he told them to teach the sons of Judah the mourning song of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Joshua, "Your beauty, Israel, is slaughtered on your high places. How high the mighty have fallen. Tell it not in Gath, proclaim it not in the streets of Ashkelon, or the daughters of the Philistines will rejoice. The daughters of the uncircumcised will celebrate. Mountains of Gilboa, may there be no dew nor rain on you in the fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty was defied, and the shield of Saul, not anointed with oil, but from the blood of those slaughtered, from the fat of the mighty. The bow of Jonathan did not turn back, and the sword of Saul did not return unstained. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and delightful in life, and in their deaths they were not separated. They were swifter than eagles, mightier than lions. Daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you in scarlet with jewelry, who put gold jewelry on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of the battle. And Jonathan is slaughtered on your high places. I'm distressed for you. My brother Jonathan, you have been a close friend to me. Your love for me was more wonderful than the love of a woman. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war have perished. Okay. Why does David say he refused to kill Saul?
All right. Let's see. In verse 14, he says that he's afraid to destroy the Lord's anointed. In don't know what chapter that was. Anyway,
Verse Samuel 26.
And verse 16, thy blood be upon thy head of thy mouth, thy mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. The Lord is in all caps.
Why was the Amalekite put to death? Because
verse 17 through 27. Oh, no. Oh, it's a two-part answer.
Yeah.
You only read, I read both answers.
Okay, yeah, because the blood was up on the head of the Lord's anointed.
It was upon his head,
Upon
because
the
his
Amalekites.
mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. The Lord is all caps.
Okay. Right, that was all of that one.
Or Yahweh.
Right. Okay, we're on page 78 if you're following along. Letter B. According to 2 Samuel 1, how did David feel about Jonathan's friendship?
Well,
he was so mourning.
In verses 17 through 27, he wrote a song. There's a song written for Jonathan there.
Yeah.
So he expresses it in that song. Is what I put down.
And I'm putting down, he mourned him and he loved him. He loved him. David treasured him.
Okay.
That's how I read it. He really did. Okay, he said he treasured him more than his wife, if that tells you anything.
Mm-hmm.
2.
Which one treasured whom?
David treasured Jonathan.
Oh, okay. So that's what happened to Nickel.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 2. Now then.
He didn't treasure her that much.
No, he didn't. Didn't sound like. Now then, let's go to 2 Samuel 4 to see another event unknown to David that occurred as a result of the news of Saul and Jonathan's deaths. Read 2 Samuel 4 and 4. Okay, 2 Samuel 4 and verse 4. Now Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son who was disabled in both feet. He was 5 years old when the news of Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel, and his nurse picked him up and fled. But it happened that in her hurry to flee, he fell and could no longer walk. And his name was Mephibosheth. So, let me read it again.
Read the last line.
Yeah. What occurred as a result of the news of Saul and Jonathan's death? That would be Mephibosheth's. Got dropped.
No. The last sentence.
Record the pertinent facts of this verse.
Yes, that's what
I said Mephibosheth got dropped.
Jonathan's son is Mephibosheth.
Yeah.
Now I can't pronounce it.
Mephibosheth.
Mephibosheth.
I heard Mark say it so much, Mephibosheth, because he wrote a book on I was dropped.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the only reason I know how to say that.
Mephibosheth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Jonathan's son was dropped and crippled.
Okay.
He was by his, his nurse.
You're going to write the whole verse.
By his nurse. I said Mephibosheth, which was Jonathan's son, was dropped and crippled by his nurse. When they heard of Jonathan's death. Okay. Number 3. When Saul dies, the logical successor to the throne would be one of his descendants. What 3 sons of Saul died in battle?
1 Samuel 31 and verse 2.
Yeah.
Jonathan, Abinadab, and Nilcheshua.
How do you spell that?
Malchishua. It's in verse 2 of 1 Samuel 31.
Okay. I read that, so I knew that all three of them. I just didn't know how to spell it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I copied it from the verse.
Read 2 Samuel. I'm not going to go back and look. I just asked you because I'd already read it. Read 2 Samuel 2 verses 1 through 11. 2 Samuel 2. Then came about afterward, David inquired of the Lord, saying, "Shall I go up to one of the cities of Judah?" The Lord said to him, "Go up." So David said, "Where shall I go up?" And he said, "To Hebron." So David went up there, and his 2 wives also, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, Abigail the widow of Nabal the Carmelite. And David brought up his men who were with him, each with his household, and they settled in the cities of Hebron. Till 11. And then the men of Judah came there, and they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying, "It was the men of Jabesh Gilead who buried Saul." So David sent messengers to the men of Jabesh Gilead and said to them, "May you be blessed of the Lord, because you have shown this kindness to Saul your Lord, and have buried him. And now may the Lord show kindness and truth to you, and I also will show this goodness to you, because you have done this thing. Now then, let your hands be strong and be valiant, since Saul your Lord is dead, and also the house of Judah has anointed me to be king over them." But Abner the son of Ner, commander of Saul's army, had taken Ishboeth the son of Saul and brought him over to Mahanaim, and he made him king over Gilead, over the Asherites in Jezreel and Ephraim, over Benjamin, even over all of Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he became king over Israel. And he was king for 2 years. The house of Judah, however, followed David. At the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Note how the kingdom of Israel was divided after Saul's death.
Alrighty, so the first thing that we have here is Hebron in verse 1. Is the first place he goes. But really, the division starts in verse 4, Judah. And then in verse 7, he's made king over Judah. In verse 9, Seth made king over Gilead, Asheritite, the Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, and all of Israel. There we go.
All the above.
Yeah. So David gets Judah, and Saul's son gets the rest. Of course, I thought all Saul's sons were dead.
And Saul's son gets the rest?
Saul's son.
Son, that weird name.
Yeah, gets the rest.
Saul's son
of Israel.
gets the rest of Israel. Okay. Read 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1. Note the condition of this divided kingdom. Okay. 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, and David becomes steadily stronger, while the house of Saul becomes steadily weaker. So
I put down that David gets stronger and the house of Saul gets weaker.
That's what I was going to put. Oh, really? Yeah. Because that's what it said. I shortened mine. David stronger, house of Saul weaker. Okay, let's go to page 79. Note how Saul's son Ishboeth dies and the events surrounding his death. So this is 2 Samuel 4, verse 1, and then 5 through 12. Now when Ishboeth, Saul's son, heard that Abner had died in Hebron, his courage failed and all of Israel was horrified. And then 5 through 12. So the sons of Reman of the Beerothite, Rechab, and Banoah departed and came to the house of Ishbosheth in the heat of the day while he was taking his midday rest. And they came to the interior of the house as if to get wheat. But they struck him in the belly, and Rechab and his brother Benonah escaped. No. Now, when they had come into the house, as he was lying on his bed in his bedroom, they struck him and killed him. And they beheaded him, and they took his head and traveled by way of the Arabah all night. Then they brought the head of Ishboeth to David at Hebron and said to the king, Behold, the head of Ishboeth, the son of Saul, your enemy, who sought your life. So the Lord has given my lord the king vengeance this day on Saul and his descendants. But David replied to Rechab and his brother Benonah, sons of Reman, the Beerothite. He said to them, As the Lord lives, who has redeemed my life from all distress? When the one who informed me, saying, Behold, Saul is dead, also viewed himself as the bearer of good news, I seized him and killed him in Ziklag, which was the reward I gave him for his news. How much more when wicked men have killed a righteous man in his own house, on his bed, shall I not now require his blood from your hands and eliminate you both from the earth? It says, when Ishboeth dies, the events surrounding his death. Note how Saul's son, dies.
Is this the first one on top
D.
of it? D.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 6 is he struck him in the belly. Verse 7, he's beheaded. And then verse 1, Abner died.
And the second one was what?
Beheaded.
Oh. But now, didn't they strike him in the belly and he went down and laid down in his bed?
No, he was laying in his bed.
Well,
and they struck him in his belly.
Oh, okay. But then I thought they'd come back. Okay.
While he was asleep, they killed him.
And then the last one was what?
Abner died, verse 1.
Okay. All right.
I'd have to read the question why I put that one.
Now note, David is made king over all of Israel. 2 Samuel 5, verse 1 through 5. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron, said, Behold, we are your bone and your flesh. Previously, when Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel out and in. And the Lord said to you, You will shepherd my people, Israel, and you will be a leader over Israel. So all the elders of Israel came to the king of Hebron. King David made a covenant with them before the Lord at Hebron. Then they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned for 40 years. At Hebron, he reigned over Judah for 7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem, he reigned for 33 years over all of Israel and Judah. Okay, and then 9 through 12. So David lived in the stronghold, called it the city of David, and David built all around from Milo and inward. David became greater and greater, for the Lord God of armies was with him. Then Hiram, the king of Tyre, sent messengers to David with cedar tree carpenters and stonemasons, and they built a house for David. David realized that the Lord had appointed him as king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. Let's see, 9 through 12. Okay. Meanwhile, David took more concubines and wives from Jerusalem after he came from Hebron, and more sons and daughters were born to David. Now these are the names of those who were born in him. In Jerusalem: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, and Solomon, Ibahar, Elishua, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphelet. Okay. Yeah. All right. So note how David is made king over all of Israel.
Okay.
That is number C, or letter C. Second one down.
Okay, so the elders of Israel league with David. I notice in somewhere else that league is a covenant.
Okay.
Was it in your?
Not
where
any
you
of
read?
these readings, huh?
Okay. So verse 11, built David a house. In verse 12, David perceived the Lord had established him king over Israel.
And made him king. Okay. All right. Number 4. Remember what Jonathan's covenant with David? Recorded in 1 Samuel 20, verse 15. 1 Samuel, get back to that, 20, and did it say 15? Yeah, 15. Okay. And you shall never cut off your loyalty to my house, not even when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth.
Okay, yeah, you're supposed to write out this verse completely.
Oh, okay.
But also, thou shalt not cut off thy kindness from my house forever, no, not when the Lord hath cut off the enemies of David, every one from the face of the earth.
Okay, that's good. Okay, number 5. We're on 79, if you're following. Number 5. Now here it comes. The beautiful climax of the story. Read 2 Samuel 9. Pretend you're going to explain this chapter to someone else, showing them how it relates to a covenant. Write your explanation. Think about Mephibosheth. Who was he? Where he had been living? Why he would be fearful, and the decision he had to make, and why he was given what he was given. And by the way, dead dog is a Hebraism for the embarrassing piece of garbage. Okay. 2 Samuel 9. 2 Samuel 9. This is called David's kindness to Mephibosheth. David said, "Is there anyone still left in the house of Saul, so I can show them kindness for Jonathan's sake?" Now there was a servant in the house of Saul whose name was Ziba. They summoned him to David, and the king said, "Are you Ziba?" And he said, "I'm your servant." Then the king said, "Is there no one remaining in the house of Saul to whom I could show kindness of God?" Ziba said to the king, "There's still a son of Jonathan, one who's disabled in both of his feet." So the king said to him, "Well, where is he?" Ziba said, "Behold, he's in the house of Machir, the son of Amiel, the Lodabar." Then King David sent the messengers who brought him from the house of Machir, and the son of Amiel from Lodabar. Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David and fell on his face, prostrated himself. David said, "Mephibosheth." He said, "Here's your servant." David said, "Don't be afraid. I will assuredly show kindness to you for the sake of your father Jonathan, and I'll restore to you all of the land of your grandfather Saul, and you yourself shall eat at my table regularly." Again, he prostrated himself and said, "What is your servant that you should be so concerned about a dead dog like me?" Then the king summoned Saul's servant Ziba and said to him, "Everything that belonged to Saul and to all of his house I have given to your master's grandson. You and your sons and your servants shall cultivate the land for him, and you shall bring in the produce, so that your master's grandson will have food to eat. Nevertheless, Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, shall eat at my table regularly." Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. And Ziba said to the king, "In accordance with everything my lord the king commands his servant, so your servant will do." So Mephibosheth ate at David's table as one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah, and all that lived in the house of Ziba were servants to Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem because he had ate at the king's table regularly. He was disabled in his 2 feet. So it says, think of Mephibosheth, who he was, where he had been living, and why he would be fearful in the decision he had to make, and why he was given what he was given.
Okay, I didn't put all that. But verses 6, no wonder it gives you space on the next page for more answer.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Verse 6 and 7, David fell on his face and reverenced Mephibosheth. Kindness for Jonathan's sake is David's act of fulfilling the covenant, is what I put.
Well, it says, who was he? I'm going to put Jonathan's son.
Right.
That was his first one. Where had he been living? Mephibosheth, where had he been living?
This M guy's house.
Micah.
No.
M-I-C-A. Let's see.
No, that's his son.
Oh, Micah's his son. Let's see. Sorry. Behold, he is in the house of Machir, Machir, the son of Amiel, the Lodabar. So he was in Machir's house.
Uh-huh.
And then, why was he fearful in the decision of why he was given what he was given? He was given because I think David gave him back all of his grandfather's stuff.
He was fearful. He was afraid that he would kill him because he's Saul's grandson.
Yeah.
He's the heir to the throne. That's the reason David bowed down to him whenever he met him and reverenced him.
Right. All right. Now, beloved, can you see the application for your life? Write it below. It will bless you.
All right. Okay.
I haven't written anything. I'll do that later.
Okay, so leadership and loyalty comes from those who keep covenant. Why until recently we did not trust a divorced man? The reason one should not be a pastor and could not be trusted as a leader. I have refused to talk about preachers because of their anointing and respect for the office. God will take care of his anointed, let's see, anointed one way or the other. That's what I put. So that concludes.
That was wonderful. That was a wonderful thing to put. I have to think about that.
I had to think about it. And so that concludes our this week's lesson 7 in Precept.
It was a good one, by the way.
And how it extends to the relatives of those who are in covenant. And so there was we addressed Michael's comments. I did see some people run through the channel, by the way.
Oh, good.
And but I didn't mention at the time. They kind of came and went.
Okay.
But we did have no, we didn't have a comment. Let's see. Yeah, we did. We on let's see. It's I usually don't like to do this on this one, but Brian family, Bry and family.
Okay.
It had a cry face. I don't know what I said, but good news from a far country. Good news. Come on. The gospel. This is interpreted as good news. It's something that we should want to share with people, like a cold glass of tall water. But, I ran into a friend on Facebook. He's in Pakistan, and him and his preacher go door to door because that it's dangerous there to tell of the gospel in that land. Proselyting is illegal in most countries. But here, we have free liberty. We can go door to door. We can do it. But you talk to people about going door to door, and they're like, "Oh no, not me. I'm afraid what's behind 525." Verse 14. And so that's the this reel that she commented on. Okay. And so it was Uncle Cecil asked me to talk about a far country.
So was she from a far country?
No, I don't think so. I think that she's from here.
We'll mention her.
I don't know, but it's Bry and family.
Bry and family.
She has 2 kids.
Oh,
Superman.
Okay. Superman.
And so we do encourage you to make comments and ask questions, and we do take up your comment or question where we see it, and then we will also take it up on the next Waycast. I'd probably give her a heart or something on that.
Looks like a lot.
Yeah, that was Michael.
Okay.
And so, but if you wish to remain anonymous, you can submit your question or comment. We are a 501c nonprofit called Christ Recovery Ministry, CCR, Christ Recovery Ministry. And so we are at P.O. Box 336, Berea, Kentucky, 40403. The phone number is 859-339-7633 if you wish to apply.
Yes.
Give us your name, your town, and if you wish to remain anonymous, and we will keep your anonymity.
Anonymity, confidentiality.
Okay. We will keep your confidence.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know what she.
I was just being silly.
She will be silly with you. And so, but with that, we, if there's no further ado, as we always do, we will say.
Good night. Adios. Au revoir. I'll be the same to thee. And oh, it's always sweet sorrow to part.
You'll know you'll always remain in my heart. Good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs fly. Here's a wish and a prayer that all your dreams come true. And now till we meet again, adios, au revoir, Aldidas. Good night, and don't ever forget you are truly loved. With that, we say good night. And now a word from Lawrence.
Half-hour show, hit songs and fashions through the years. We hope we brought you some pleasant memories. Now from all of our musical family, good wishes, good health.